365 Sports, Sam Kahn, theathletic.com, joins us on Thursdays, and sometimes it's a different day because he's busy. And Sam, thank you for joining us again today. So where do you want to start? With Sabin and Cody Campbell, the filings late last night about the House settlement? Or
what day is it? Tell me what day is it? I don't know. I've lost
Thursday,
track.
Sam.
It is Thursday. It's almost
10 years ago. I used to be on vacation at this time of year.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Football was over, and
coaches
were out recruiting, and
yep.
you could kind of disappear and tuck away for a little bit. And now I'm up late trying to chase down a presidential commission. So times have changed in college athletics. I'll start with Cody Campbell and Nick Saban, since that's the most late breaking thing. I'll be interested to see how this goes. My biggest question is how much teeth is this thing going to have, and how much real power will they have? Because the House settlement we're getting closer to this being approved. And once that's approved, I think that's going to not rectify every issue, but that's going to settle a lot of issues. But that's not going to stop litigation. Like if the presidential commission wants to outline some things, I think that's great. I just want to know how enforceable it is, because I don't really know how enforceable some of the stuff is going to be. I do think putting the two people that they put as co-chairs, or they're planning to put as co-chairs, Nick Saban and Cody Campbell, at least you're putting in people who have real world experience, who are versed in the day-to-day of college athletics. Obviously Saban, not necessarily right now, but has been for a long time as a head coach. And Cody Campbell obviously is helping cut checks to players to get them on Texas Tech's roster. So he knows what the inner workings look like on a day-to-day basis, not just in football, but across athletics, because obviously they spend a lot of money in other sports as well. So at least you're getting two people with a really strong knowledge base that are informed on the day-to-day issues that we're dealing with, because I think that's one thing that is lacking in a lot of decision-making in college athletics, is enough people who are in it day-to-day. I think that's something that we sometimes miss, just to include college presidents or other people who have a million other things to do other than focus on college sports. Having people who are in it, I think, is a beneficial thing.
Yeah, and they need to have athletes and lawyers and I would say coaches from sports that are not just football and basketball. Have a track and a softball and a tennis coach, somebody like that in there who can speak to the challenges that they face. And Sam, I can just tell you, if the ultimate goal here is executive order, I mean, there's a shelf life on those. I mean, that's not how it works. So I feel like all of this is just every last-ditch effort they can to hold on to the past and not deal with collective bargaining.
Yeah, I think so, because the one thing that you seem to hear consistently as a theme is that these are not employees. And I think that's going to be the last thing they're going to hold on to, is not making players employees, because if you do, then you have to give employee protections. And if you have to give employee protections, that's a whole nother can of worms in a set of regulations and rules that you have to follow that are much different than what it is now. So they're trying to thread that needle of, okay, we're going to pay you, but you're not an employee, which I don't know how you make that work without an antitrust exemption, but they're certainly trying. So as far as the commission goes, again, I think Saban has one view of this, which is interesting, because he has been very vocal about how much he doesn't like that money has influenced it, and it was cited as part of the reason for his retirement, that, hey, players really only cared about what they got paid. Well, on the flip side, you've got Cody Campbell, who is the founder of a collective that is cutting large checks to just about any player they can get on their roster. So even though they may see eye to eye on some things, that's one thing that I find very fascinating that they maybe don't, because Cody is very much, let's cut these checks to the players, and Nick, I think, wants to wrangle that in a little bit. So I'll be fascinated to see how that works, and I also want to see who else is on this committee once they end up forming it.
And in particular, would you like to see somebody representing the student athletes on this committee? Because that seems to be a big missing piece. I know we've got two names that have been mentioned, but I saw, I think, most people's initial reactions and kind of the outcry, if anything, was, well, I don't know if there's going to get anything done, but like, this doesn't favor the student athlete, just these two and guys like this. They need to have some players or former players involved as well.
Absolutely. And I think you saw that with the House settlement hearing. If you guys remember back on April 7th, having the testimony and having the perspective of actual athletes and players and people who live this and who have to go through everything and sacrifice and have to balance the class with the athletics and and how many hours they put in and the opportunities that they have. That voice is invaluable. And I think it is far too often that they don't have a big enough voice at the table. I know there are a lot of NCAA committees and oversight groups that have a slot for maybe a few slots for athletes, but there's not that many. Most of it is made up of administrators or people with some kind of power. I think having the voice for the athletes is really good. It's really beneficial. I think part of the challenge has always been is that those athletes are only there for 4 to 5 years. And so, and that's also when we talk about the settlement is going to affect a group of athletes that are not even there yet that will come later. And that's what makes this so challenging. Whereas in professional sports, they have a union and they can argue and bargain on behalf of themselves. That's not the case here. And you do have some groups who are trying to do that. There are groups out there trying to get players to unionize. And I don't know if we'll ever get that far, but I think your point, Craig, is right, is that having the athletes have a voice at the table is really important because they're the ones ultimately being affected by this, especially when you talk about the roster limits. Like those are athletes that are suffering those consequences. Some of which have already been cut at this point. Some of which who are waiting to see if they're going to.
Yeah, and they're the ones, the objectors, so to speak, when it comes to the House settlement and what the filings were about. The objectors are running this thing as much as the judges, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think because Claudia Wilken, the judge, has been very empathetic to them, and I think rightfully so, because these are athletes, especially for the walk-ons. The walk-ons who don't have a scholarship, who are paying their own way, that they are very much have much more to lose than a scholarship athlete, so to speak, I think, because they're already giving a huge sacrifice to play. And so now you're going to say, well, we were going to make this arbitrary roster limit, and now you're off the roster. And I will say it's boggled my mind that, and I know you guys touched on it earlier, it has boggled my mind that Claudia Wilken has pretty much spelled out what she wants the response to be from the NCAA and the schools on the roster limit. And it seems like they keep inching toward that way, but never fully getting there. And I just don't understand it. Like it's like a parent telling you what to do. It's like, hey, clean your room and make your bed, and you pick up a few things and you leave. And then she tells you again, your mom tells you again, please make your bed and clean your room. And then you make half the bed, maybe throw a pillow on there, and then you pick up a couple other things. No, eventually she wants you to clean your room. Just do it. Just get it over with. And giving people the option of doing it rather than mandating them to do it, to me, it just drags it on. Oh, by the way, we are less than 2 months from having to pay it. Like this is supposed to go into effect on July 1st. So we're now less than 2 months from that, and we may not get full approval for another few weeks. So we're talking basically a month's runway, essentially a little bit more than a month's runway to get this. And now, granted, schools have been preparing for it, but it's all very symbolic of how we've handled everything from NIL to reduction of transfer eligibility to everything else that we've had. It's just all very haphazard and not very planned out thoughtfully.
Judge Wilkins going to send him to the timeout corner or just beat him with a belt. Yeah, that you don't want mom mad, right?
Here's the other thing, Sam. She's trying to retire.
Yeah,
like this is the last thing she's gonna do.
Yeah, this is her going out. Yeah,
don't anger a person who's trying to like get out the door. Just here's the thing: she wants to be done with this. Like I think every time she said, like, I like everything but this one thing, and they're like, I mean, sorry, and then like, why are there deal breakers at this point? And that's why, that's just why, when you commission this, commission that, all of this is avoidance. It's just avoidance. And it's really, really sad that we keep having to talk about this.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Craig got Nick hit it up off the top. I didn't get into college athletics to cover court cases, although we've all had to learn how to do this. So I will tell you, I had a lot more fun last month when the transfer portal was open, actually talking about football and what players are going where and what they may bring to their team. So I'm really anxious for this to get going, for this to get approved, and for us to move forward so that we can actually talk about ball, because you guys mentioned it earlier too, Texas A&M is going back to Black Friday. Like, I'm excited for that. That was one of the most fun experiences I had last year was Texas A&M, and that's ultimately what we're here for.
Well, that was what I was going to ask you about next, Sam. I mean, you just said that you're excited about it, but do you have anything you want to add to that? I got another question I could pivot to, but yeah, we just got that announcement in the last hour, Black Friday for the Aggies and the Longhorns this season.
Yeah, I grew up watching it on Black Friday. I think it was 1996 to 07 is when it was on Black Friday. So that was my prime, like preteen, teenage, and then early 20s. So that was really when I got to watch the game often. Was on Black Friday. As a journalist, I prefer it not to be on Thanksgiving because I like to spend Thanksgiving with my family at home and not have to go drive to cover a game. I have done a Thanksgiving game before. It's cool, but it's not my favorite experience. Black Friday is good because there's fewer games that day and there's less competition in the TV window. I know NFL's got a Black Friday game, but I think it's in the afternoon. So this Texas A&M, I believe, is the only kickoff time that we have decided so far for Black Friday this year. All the other games that I looked at on the schedule, they're all TBD.
I think Ole Miss and Mississippi State might be 11 o'clock or something like
Okay.
that. That might have been released too.
Well, there you go. Well, hey, how about a triple header with Egg Bowl in the morning, clean old-fashioned hate in the midday, and Texas A&M prime time?
Absolutely.
Yeah, like that.
It's just fun talking about the possibility of those games.
Nebraska and Iowa's in there too.
Yeah, somewhere.
Territorial Cup is on Black Friday also.
Yeah, that's usually about a 12 or something like that kickoff, and between the Hawkeyes and the Huskers as well. So you did some homework on what we had you on last week. We were looking at the portal, and then I asked the question, do you know how many of the portal players are actually former five-star players? And then you went and did some research on that, and there are a lot more of those than we thought.
Yeah, it was 25 that had entered the portal this offseason, 23 who actually changed schools at the end of the day. So it was way more than I anticipated. But I guess if you consider that this is across multiple classes, we're going all the way back to 2019, 2020. So I guess you're averaging out probably 3 or 4 per class, essentially. So I guess that's not out of the realm of possibility when you consider there's 30 plus 5-stars in every class. But it was eye-opening to see, and a lot of them, to me, I think the most eye-opening part was most of them are in the last few classes, 2022, 2023, and 2024. So, and I don't want to make too many jokes, but I feel like half this list was Texas A&M and USC and North Carolina. Like it was those three schools accounting for most of these players. I mean, Texas A&M's 2022 recruiting class, I think well documented, absolutely fell apart. I think there's only 5 or 6 players in that 30-member class that are still on campus at A&M. Only one has finished his career so far at A&M. That was Shamar Stewart, who got drafted. They're going to end up having multiple draft picks out of that class, but only one so far will have finished his career at A&M. Shamar Stewart. Walter Nolan ended up at Ole Miss, and of course got drafted. Evan Stewart, who could potentially be a draft pick. I saw him in one of those way too early mock drafts. He's over at Oregon. So there's a lot of guys who were in that class that were really talented guys, but obviously that whole class and that whole team kind of blew up in 2022 and 2023. But I think this is just reflection of the nature of the sport now. It's like even if you are a 5-star, it doesn't mean that you're going to automatically stay at your school forever. I think if you are a great player and you are a All-American type, absolutely the school is going to do what they can to retain you. But if for whatever reason your playing time goes sideways or you just are not a system fit or whatever happens, you're going to move on just like everybody else does. So it was interesting to see that many. My next thing I might look up is how many 5-stars over the last, or how many 5-stars, not just this portal window, but over the last 3 or 4 years. I'd be curious to see what that looks like.
Sam's got some father duties, so Paul, make this quick.
Yeah. Anybody else hanging out there in the transfer portal we should be aware of?
No,
at this point,
I don't think so. I mean, the last real big one I thought was AJ Halsey, who ended up going to LSU. That was a really big pickup. And you talk about transfer portal class. I think LSU has an argument as the best portal class in the country. I know Texas Tech has a stake for that. I think OU has an argument for that. Maybe even Texas, even though their portal class is smaller. I thought Texas did really well, but I think LSU has a really good argument for it. They certainly needed some help in the secondary. I think Halsey was a really good addition. And then you look at what they put around Garrett Nussmeier. They went and got Nick Anderson, Barian Brown from Kentucky, Bauer Sharp, the tight end from Oklahoma. Like they've given Garrett Nussmeier some weapons. And so when you look at LSU trying to kind of gear everything up for a SEC title run and a run to the playoff, I think they've done about as good a job as anybody in the country. But yeah, we're at the point now where there's some too deep types, and there's some guys who may end up starting somewhere in the portal, but not really a lot of real headline grabbing names at this point. We're kind of getting, I think these next few weeks here, you're going to start to see things slow down a little bit as guys start landing in their spots.
Final thing for you, Sam. Brett Yormark signs an extension through 2030. It seems to line up really well with the television deals and all the chaos that some people expect could break loose then, if at all. So just any thoughts on that? I mean, it might just be a headline that passes for some, but notable that he's going to be right in line with the expiration of the TV contracts.
Yeah, no, I think it's good for the conference. I think he's been really good for the conference's branding, the conference's image. They've been very, obviously, putting them on stable footing with everything they did from a realignment standpoint. That really helped solidify their foundation, getting the TV deal done a year earlier than scheduled, which I think put them ahead and helped them ultimately avoid the fate that the Pac-12 ended up suffering. So I think his legacy is very secure. He's been willing to try a lot of different things, which I think is good for the conference, because they're not necessarily going to beat the Big Ten and the SEC in headlines because they don't have the big brands that they do. So you got to be creative, and I think he's done that. Not everything he does is going to work. Not everything he does is going to be met with arousing excitement and consensus from all the other ADs and schools in the conference. But I think he's largely operated with the conference's best interests at heart, and I think he's been a good steward for them, and I think it's good that they locked him up for a little bit longer.
We got you out a minute before you asked us to. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it, Sam. Great stuff today. Sam Conn, theathletic.com, with us Thursdays.